Hi, we're back here with more mod development. I know I said I broke my 1710 workspace here on Twitter like a day or so ago. It turned out not to be that too difficult to fix. I just had to rebuild another workspace which downloaded all the missing dependencies, rerun it a few times to get a couple of the dependencies, and then restructure it just to get things linked back up. The good news is that my workspace now runs on, I think, the latest version of Forge for 1.7. So that's 16, 14. I think it's the latest. I actually really don't know, and I don't really care to check either. But stuff is updated now. It's also running the newer launch wrapper, which actually has shown an improvement in the run speed. So we got this set up, and I still am going to work towards the update. We're going to try to get towards it a little bit better. We still have things to do, though. So now the workspace is fixed, I can go back to finishing up some details. One of the things I ended up finishing up here is I got the medium missile rendering properly, and I got it set to, so it'll launch. So we're going to go here, and we're going to run through some content real quick, look for obvious bugs, and kind of, as we go, try to think of like how we're going to update things. Now, there is a list of stuff I still need to do to get updated, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and update the 1.8 at some point in time over the next couple weeks, and then I'm going to just backport changes between the two versions until I get a version of ICBM that does not require Minecraft code directly. That is the goal, because if I can do that, then ICBM doesn't need updated anymore. It's just, you don't have to do anything, which would be beautiful, because then if I can get one mod doing that, then I can get two mods doing that, and I can get so many more mods doing that after that. So that means the only thing I really have to work towards is updating voltage and per version, which would save me huge amounts of work, because after all, we're sitting on some 120 repositories for mods, and that's going to eventually get larger and larger as we go. So every time Minecraft updates, we have to, of course, make changes and stuff, and it's going to take a lot of effort. That's a good way to put it. Ignoring all that, because it's something I've spoke about I don't know how many times on these dev videos, we're just going to do the usual and kind of just work on mods. Okay, so yeah, the first one, just kind of want to go through the content. I'm going to get poked probably, I don't know how many times through Steam. I probably should just turn Steam off here. That'll be a good idea. Goodbye, Steam. Goodbye, Discord. I'm going to leave my IRC open because I like to have chat logs for certain channels. I've got chat logs for like almost 6 years for like the Minecraft Forge channel, for example. I go back there and just see like what everybody's talking about. Not that I actually have ever done that, because to be honest, it's a tedious process, but it's nice to have logs so that if somebody's like, hey, somebody was talking about you like on this date, it's like, oh, I can go back in the log and see what they were talking about. But anyways, yeah, so the medium launcher was actually, it's set up now, so it actually works. Now we still have this little render thing to fix. That's actually surprisingly easy to handle. All we would have to do is come down to this guy here and go, okay, my render bounds are like that big, and it would fix, so that way you could actually see this guy render. Same thing down here and stuff. I kind of want to do some better renders for this guy, because this guy's so large that I may want to break the render down into sections and then pull off some magic to kind of understand where the player's looking at. So that way, like, if you could only see the top half, for example, it ain't rendering the bottom half too, which, to be honest, there's no real frame rate loss. I'm getting frame rate fluctuation just simply because the lighting is updating around us. And that's it. It's actually running pretty good. These guys render pretty fast. If I cache them, they would render even faster. And they do work, by the way. So we have, I think, a radiation missile, because I think it's what I'm in my hand on. We have to still fix the icon for here, so icon's one thing we have to do. Let's actually pull out Notepad here and just start writing down things that need to be fixed. So render bounds for missile launcher, icon for large missiles. We'll just save this to my desktop. ICBM to-do list 7.14. And for those guys of you that like to write in the European style, I don't care. It's a good way to put it. That's the style I write into. I could argue all day about it too, that it's just more convenient to only have to switch the middle number. But then again, it literally does come down to personal preference. So yeah, we have to fix render bounds, we have to fix the icon, but launching works. So let me get let me get a GPS thing here so I can actually, a radar gun so I can actually target that over there. And we want to, of course, transfer coordinates. Transfer coordinates still works. By the way, all these launchers will operate exactly the same. The only difference is that there will be range limitations eventually. Right now, there's not actually range limitations on any of these, but there will be range limitations on each style and size. And I still haven't determined if I want the launcher to tell you you're out of range or not. And I may just go, okay, you can fire it. It's just going to run out of fuel and hit somebody's base that you didn't intend it to hit. And anyways, mini missile. So this is hooked up already. I was already testing it, and we can fire. And you can watch it go up, and you can see it up there. It's big enough that it actually is noticeable. And of course, it's got the nice pinkish purple engine because it's a crater mode engine, and it went to the moon. It'll come back down here in a few seconds. So actually, you know what? It's probably going to hit this slime island. I didn't realize that. Yep, it just hit the slime island. Okay, let's see if the missile dropped. It did not drop. It did dump radiation everywhere, because I've got weakness too, and it's going to kill these slimes. So it works though. Let me find a better spot to fire that at so you guys can watch it come down. Of course, this will work with all the other systems, so you can remote detonate these guys and everything else. We're going to be working on acceleration, so acceleration is something that needs to be done. Let me put that in the list over here. It's on the other monitor, by the way. Still need to get the hotkey set up so we can switch monitors. The only unfortunate thing about doing hotkey switching for this is that my monitors are not the same size. The one that I currently have the video software on and a few other things is almost twice the width of the monitor I'm using. It's one of those ultra wides that I got for a Christmas gift. I'm so happy about it because I haven't had a monitor like that in a long time, and it's so nice for code productivity. Unfortunately, it is horrible for making recordings. So yeah, let's put it like right there, and it will target that. And then let me grab a missile that actually will not explode on impact. I want to say we can grab the anti-plant one. There we go. And you can see in my hand, it actually does render properly. Third person renders properly. Throwing it, it looks like a little toy model. And we're probably going to actually make this into a toy model here later that is craftable. After all, I want to kind of do some more immersive role-playing style stuff for some of my mods where you can actually do things like you would do in real life. Like crafting toys in real life is a legit thing, and you could actually sell them and stuff. Of course, I have to make villagers to sell them to, or make a black box where you can throw stuff into. Actually, the black box part isn't too bad of an idea. I've been thinking about doing like this mini game where you have like this delivery truck that you just load stuff with, and the delivery truck disappears and then comes back, and then comes back with money. He's like, here, you've made 1,000 credits, and it'd just be like a mini game who can make more money. Yeah, but you can see this guy come down, and it looks so nice when it comes down. Of course, in reality, this thing would actually hit the ground much faster than what it hit. It would be going a pretty much free fall speed, which has been so quick that as soon as it popped up there to hit the ground. But not going to worry about that right now. I like the slow speed just because it is kind of a little nice to use. But it does impact. Unfortunately, it does go in the ground quite a bit because the actual center point of this missile is somewhere in the middle. Like you can actually see where it impacts right there. It hit a grass block apparently. The grass block rendering needs to be fixed. So grass block render. Actually, I want to also note larger missiles should break fake blocks. So what that's actually for is you see that grass block thing here? That's for when you get a micro missile that impacts and it gets stuck in grass. It's meant to just kind of be nice, immersive, visual pleasing design, but I have yet to fix it. I know exactly what's wrong with it. I know exactly how to fix it, but I just have not fixed it. It's one of those things where it's just not a top priority because, to be honest, it renders bad, but who cares? It's not game-breaking and everything else. It is something that will get fixed, though. Other than that, there's not really much to do. We've just got to get some acceleration going here. We do have to still implement a few blocks. So there's the missile clamp that needs to be implemented at some point. I do need to figure out how in the world we're going to craft these things, because I mean, these things are huge. They're tall enough that I really don't want to use a simplistic crafting approach, but seeing as we have a deadline to eventually get updated here by next month, I kind of want to just throw together a crafting system very similar to the standard, and just use it for the medium for the time being. Because both the standard and the medium are actually going to be losing their crafting system through the launcher, because I don't want to be using the launchers to craft with. That was just a temporary thing in the first place. What I want to do with them is have a dedicated like assembly system where you would craft all the pieces, you would weld them together, you put the fins on there, you would insert the engines, the warhead, everything else, and you would conveyor belt it all the way over here, put it on the launcher, and then fire it off. This is the same way you see this, how the small is crafted, and of course the micro, it can be handcrafted. It's an RPG round, you can handcraft those in real life. You could technically handcraft all of this in real life, it just would be a pain in the butt. But yeah, the standard can be crafted through a little workbench. I think it's this workbench, because the other one's going to disappear here eventually. But yeah, so you craft this in here, and you can assembly craft it, and then you conveyor belt it over there. Even though you can pick these up, because these are still can be handheld launched, and they will always be carryable, because I plan to use these for vehicles later, as well as these ones. These guys will probably be the last one that can be vehicle transported and fired. Then of course the next one up is the medium, which will never be vehicle fired because it's too goddamn big. Then of course there's going to be two sizes up from this, which will almost always be silo fired, because I am not going to make something move these. This will be the last one that can probably be moved using some kind of automation, and then the large and extra large, those two will be pretty much carted to the silo and left in the silos. But yeah, so let's get into it though. So the first thing we want to do is fix the render bounce, so that way this is no longer a problem. It's the same. Actually, this guy's already fixed. Let's go look at the standard launcher and see how we fixed it. Of course, we still need to optimize the explosive. That's another thing. Explosive optimization. With that, we need to convert explosives to a block pause. Now, this won't be the vanilla Minecraft block pause, but it'd be so similar that when we actually update to any new version, what I will simply do is change my version to extend the Minecraft version, and the two will be compatible with each other. So you could literally just take my block pause and pass it into any Minecraft method, and it would work exactly the same. That's the plan to do, because that would work really, really well. And I could still isolate my code in such a way that my code doesn't depend on Minecraft, but then I still have that Minecraft support in the back end. That's the plan to do how everything. Entities are going to be done the same way, where we'll have like a wrapper, we'll have wrappers for the world. Blocks and items will have wrappers as well. Block and items will have property data to them, which is already something that exists in new versions, but it's something we'll implement on our own. This would be a lot of cross stuff that we're going to be duplicating what Minecraft has, just because we need to make our code separate from everything else. But yeah, so keeping focus, I don't kind of go on a rant about what I plan to do. For those who kind of want to see my ideas of what I'm going to be doing with voltage and everything else, I am starting to spend a lot more time writing notes in the Google Drive. So those of you who do have access to the Patreon, you do have access to the Google Drive, although you just need to go back and read through the post to find the Google link. If you can't find it, just ask me. I will give you access. I want to set up some software to automate that process here later, but it's not a high priority. There's like 3 people that even have access altogether right now. And if that gets a little bit higher, or there gets a lot more people that start doing it, I will try to automate it, so that way every single month that it kicks off the payment, I will try to have something automatically email you all with links to all of the Discords, to all of the messaging systems, give you all the login info you need for stuff. Well, it won't be login info. You'll get a link and you'll just be able to read through everything, as it will be read-only mode. Although we're going to do a lot of cool things. I kind of want to get more done. I really do want to get the Volt server up so I can give people who support via Patreon like a nice little member tag on the server. That'll be $1 up. We'll give you all that. So it'll be anybody who offers money. Unfortunately, I think $1 is the minimum you could do. I don't know if you can do any lower than that, because unfortunately I think it costs like 25 cents just to do stuff through PayPal. But we want to look at how the launcher works. So we got the standard JSON, which is what I think is here. Yeah, so we got a render bound system. Now the quickest, easiest way we can fix this is we could just take this guy and we could set him to be like ridiculously large. And that would work. It'd be the lazy way to do it, but it'd work. What we actually want to do is find some way to apply render bounds per type. And that one's going to be a little trickier. What I think I can do is I can do the same thing I'm doing down here with a lot of other stuff. We could just give it an ID, and then we can give it a content use ID. Yeah, because actually this is a good thing, because I need to make a couple listeners today anyways. So I need to make a listener to detect what block we're placing things on. So that way I can come down here and go, okay, this block can only be placed on the ground or something. That way I can recycle more code. The more code I can recycle, the happier I am. Especially considering with those blast walls we're working on, I need to make those blast walls so that when you place them, only place on certain materials. But I don't want to write a fully custom system for that, because that means I have to update it, which would be a pain. But I need code anyways, so yeah, listeners would be a good idea. Then that means what we want to get rid of our current render bound system, but we don't want to get rid of it per se. We want to just copy it. Then we can come down here. Do this. I still have to work on arrays and stuff for this. Then we put like this here, and we just go, okay, instead of calling this bounds, this would be box, but our ID would be render bounds. And then we, of course, would have a content ID system for it. And we could do rotation for it, but I am going to lazy this one out because having a little bit of extra render bound makes almost no difference in this, how this stuff functions. So we just kind of want to duplicate this over and over again. A lot of code here. Okay, so the small missile's like 3 blocks tall. I'm going to do 4. Because I think the top of the launcher is 4 blocks, so we could end up with a missile that actually is 4 blocks tall. I think it's how it works. No, it is actually 3 blocks. And this one is, of course, 2 blocks. Because that's the top of the launcher, is that one for 2 blocks. We want the render bounds to only go to the top of the launcher and not go to whatever theoretical somebody's going to like shove a larger missile into what it could have been a smaller package. So this will be micro. And the reason why we're doing the content ID is because this is the content ID of the launcher, so it matches this up here. And okay, this is the standard. And then this guy is going to be 7 blocks tall. That's 5 plus. Actually, I think it's one more than. I'm going to leave it how it is because that's what it was previously, and it works. Actually, you know what? I think we have to make the render bounds 1 taller because of a bug in Minecraft. I think that's the reason why this is 7 instead of 6. And eventually we're going to be able to get rid of the standard launcher listener, which I'm going to be so happy about. We're going to be switching that to a render system down here. I have like detailed notes on that one. I've been working on that one for a while here. So that's going to be cool, really cool. So this one's going to be pretty much 3 blocks in every direction. We are lazying this one. This was the one that would need a rotation system. It would be really nice to have a rotation system for it. But I don't want to spend a huge amount of time working on listeners today. I do have other things I actually want to do. I have a report to write, a quiz to take, code to write, and then I need to go check up on my team and see what the flip they're doing. And I also need to poke my professor repeatedly so he unlocks an assignment, because I submitted my assignment to the wrong location last week, and unfortunately it locked this week's assignment because I submitted it to that spot, and now I can't submit this week's assignment because it's locked up, which is sad, because that means if the professor doesn't do anything, then I'm going to be tardy on another assignment, and that would be bad because my grade is not doing so well. So let's see, this all looks good. So now we need to make a listener for render bounds. We then need to make a feedback mechanic to the existing version of the system, and that should do the trick. Let me close a few of these then while we're at it. Actually, you know what, I shouldn't have closed this because I need to make sure I can look at the formatting. So there's content use ID. Yeah, that'll work. I think I'm going to start making all listeners have a content use ID, to be honest. Just might be a common thing. Yeah, that'll be pretty easy to implement here later. And I'm trying to remember where the things are, because I mean, I've just gotten up here like not long ago. I know it's 3 o'clock, but one of those days where you work till like 8 in the morning, and then you're like, oh, you know what? I forgot to sleep. Let's actually sleep. And your body's like, nah, let's sit here for a couple more hours. So we want to find, I believe it's the prefab folder. Then it would be tiles, and then listeners. And we just want to make a new listener. So I'm just going to copy any one I find, and we're just going to name it render bounds. Render bounds. To be honest, this stuff really shouldn't be in the prefab because it's misleading. This means usually when you make a prefab, it's not internally used, but this stuff is internally used, so technically it should be up in like the framework or the lib or something. I'll reorganize this stuff at a later date. It's not important right now. So we're definitely not doing a destroyed listener because that's not what we're doing. We are going to have to make a new API for this because we don't have one for render bounds. Let me take a look at this real quick. So up in the framework, we have the block. Then we have the tile. Okay, these aren't the tiles I'm looking for. I believe it's actually logic, and it's in the wrapper. So down here should be a callback for render bounds, I believe. Get render bounds, yeah, and you just call get host, get data, get render bounds. So this is where we would actually have to supply a listener system. So good thing we're in here because I want to grab. I don't want to grab this guy actually. Where's my code generator at? The code generator, interestingly, has a piece of nice, interesting code in it. So here we go. Tile multiply input. So get listeners, which is a really cool method. So we can grab this guy. And what I'm going to do real quick with him is I'm going to make this a method in the wrapper itself. And we'll call get listeners, and you could just go string key. And then what we'll do is we'll get rid of this guy. Actually, before we get rid of him, let me copy this out of this. Because the recycling code is nice. And we'll make this not a private method here in a second. So we'll come up here, and this will be protected. And we'll go ahead and we'll rename this. This is no longer an internal method. This is something like any listener could use. And then we'll go ahead and put the key here. So this is a reusable piece of code basically. And what it does is it gives you back a list of lists. To be honest, we could combine the two lists if we really wanted to, but I decided it's just simpler to have two lists and you just pass things back and forth. I need to make a lambda for this. It would be so much quicker just to go here. Here's the code I want to run on every single object in this list, but I have to go look up how that works, and I'm just not going to do that today. What section are we in? We're in wrapper calls. This would technically be a helper or a utility. Gets lists of listeners that apply to this block. As the listener key returns list of lists. So yeah, so if we're not an instance of block base, we automatically just grab this tiles listeners, which will be get listeners with key, and it works out pretty well. One thing this doesn't do is it doesn't check itself because it assumes itself is not a listener, and that should always be the case because a wrapper should not have a listener applied to it. A wrapper can contain listeners but not be a listener is how it's supposed to be. I might actually set up some code to crash if it does it. But here's the other piece of code we want. So we want this section. And we want to pop over here. Well, actually, we don't want to pop over here. We want to go back to the wrapper because I needed to be in there. And we want this guy. So by default, if we don't have a renders bound, we want to make sure we're using this, using whatever that is. So we have some kind of default. And then what we want to do is grab listeners for the render bounds, I guess. Yeah, so that'd be a pretty straightforward system. Nothing complicated. And then we want to come up to the API, go to our magical listener package, which is somewhere here, and add another listener. Yeah, this is just going to get... I'm realizing one of the big things about doing all these listeners is it's going to get out of hand eventually. It is a cool methodology, though. So there's a lot of advantage to this, of having all these listeners, is that I can tap into any spot. The unfortunate thing is that also disadvantage is there's a ton of them, and it's a lot of work to maintain them. Use to modify the render bounds of the tile. There we go. And this also means that if somebody wants to, they could also make a listener to supplement the current listener. So say if somebody actually does want to stick a 10 block tall missile in the 3 block tall launcher, all they have to do is then remove my listener and put their own listener in there, and they can update the render bounds. It makes the code incredibly flexible, even if people don't like the idea of it. Because the reason I'm thinking about this is I know there's a lot of people that have started to hate on object-oriented programming, and this is basically object-oriented programming, is that you're using objects to do actions. And I kind of really like it, but unfortunately people don't like it. So for this, we want to return a cube, so we make sure any code we run is going to be independent from Minecraft. So then we want to run get render bounds, because we shouldn't have any inputs on this. So this should be just a flat out... Oh wait, I want a default, and then I want to return cube 0. Oh no, I'm going to return null by default. And that should work. So we go I render listener, which we're going to go apply to this. Import it. This is going to be a block system, so it's going to work off of block IDs. And then we want to come down here and we want to go, okay, I'm an instance of I render bounds. We want to make sure the isValid for tile is working, because we're going to use that code. And this is where I need to go move the isValid check to every listener and not just the one I'm using. And then we want to go get the code back. So we want to go cube equals listener dot get. No, we want get. It's not going to cast it again. This seems to be a common problem, that I can't get this to cast sometimes. There we go. So that gets us a cube. First thing we want to do is cube does not equal null. Then we want to go cube.isValid. There's actually a valid check for cubes. What the valid check ends up being is that it goes, okay, you have to be, your minimum has to be, it should not equal your max. And then technically there should be a minimum is less than the max check, but there isn't one for that. As well as there's checks to make sure that nothing's below the bottom of the map. There's no checks for top of the map though. Probably going to add those later. But it essentially says, okay, your cube has to be inside the world, is what it says. Even though with a render bound, that's not as important. We may revisit this. We just want to return a cube, I guess. First come, first serve. Maybe. We could try to see what is the bigger cube, but I think that's going to be resource intensive. We're just going to return first come, first serve. I'm trying to decide if I want to reset the render bound state too. Because right now we're caching it. Do I want to catch this too, so we're not rerunning this? Because if we're not rerunning it, then I can do all kinds of checks I want in here, because it's a first off thing and you don't have to worry about it. It means you can do some really complicated code, you can make some really cool render bounds. But I think for the moment we're not going to overcomplicate it, and we're just going to go cube dot get render bounds dot get clone. Okay, so this is what they actually do. So clone and then 2ABB. I'm going to clone it because I'm going to assume that whoever threw the cube back here may not be running a clean instance of it. So what you should do is when you make a render bound is you should always return a brand new instance of the cube. But I can't assume that's ever going to be the case, so I'm going to run clone on it first because that's only going to take up a little bit more memory. Then we're going to translate it to the center of the object, and then we're going to, of course, turn it to an ABB. I think this works properly. So all the collision boxes are going to assume that you're making a cube on that corner, which is what most people do anyways with collision boxes and stuff and render boxes. So this should be fine. So this code should run. We're going to have to actually specify what my render bound is in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down here, and then we're going to go hunt down the code for this. And it should be this guy down here. So let's get listener key. Actually, I want the list here. So I want this guy. That's what I want. So this tells whatever code that's running us what listener keys we are using, and of course we just want to go ahead and populate this with the IDs. So that way, when you register the listener, it'll go, okay, here's all my keys, and it'll register it to the correct location. Of course, render bounds. Then we want to implement the method, and then we're also going to need to implement a few different things here. So it won't be instantaneously done for this. And then we'll do our placement listener here maybe after this one. What is our recording time at right now? 31 minutes? Okay, so this is probably the last thing we'll do. So we get the cube here. We want to read the cube in. So this is where it's kind of nice to have that list of listeners open. Is that I can come down here and I can take a look at a couple of these. And I want to see, one, we need a builder. That's going to be important. Does the inventory break listener not have a builder? It does not have a builder. It's actually not an unused system. We probably should fix that later. So we're going to need a builder. The builder is going to need to build our object. So this will be render bound listener. And this key is going to be render bounds because that's how we're going to just set it up. Now I want to find one of these that actually does have extra data on it. I don't see one. So we're going to have to go hunt down a different one of these, which is going to be multi-block. There's a listener for the multi-block. This is what I'm looking for, is this additional data. Because how this works is I can take this additional data and I don't have to do anything fancy with it because, well, I don't have to add a whole bunch of get methods. I don't have to do anything. I just throw out my methodology and I just tell it what I want. And it will automatically, when loading up my listener, load in my extra data for me. And this is also where I was talking about I kind of want to put the content ID system on everything. I'm going to have to look into how to do this later because I don't know if my system understands how to take and look at superclasses. I think these annotations only work for a set type. So we're going to go ahead and just grab this. And I'm going to throw it up here anyways, so we're going to go put it in here. And we're just pop it to the bottom. So this needs a content ID, it needs a meta check. So what we'll do is we're going to change how this guy works. So I'm going to get rid of this. And right at the top, we're going to have content ID, and we're going to have a meta check. So protected int meta check equals -1. So is that right? Yeah, -1. So this means this code's here. This means I can also go into my multi-block listener, get rid of this code. However, yeah, I don't know. Let's actually make the super thing work. This will take a little bit more time than our normal, but it'll be worth it because this will make our code much more flexible. It'll let our code do a lot of things. This also means that anytime anybody makes any kind of listener that is supported by Volt's engine, it will automatically have the ability to turn the listener off if the content ID doesn't match or the meta doesn't match. So you can go, okay, like Squib's mushroom only has a wrench listener for metadata too, because that mushroom happens to be a metal mushroom, which means in order to harvest it, you have to click it with a wrench. That's just something I'm thinking off the top of my head, by the way. Although I kind of want to make that now. So this is, we don't want layout key here. We want, coming back here, box is what we're going to call it. So yeah, box is pretty lame, to be honest. Then we want type to equal, I believe it's cube, and this would be value equals box. Do we even have a cube importer? I'm pretty sure we do because of the fact that Blockbase actually supports cubes. So let's go block property data, and I need to go make sure what I think exists actually does exist. Yes, it's actually a cube. It actually is called render bounds. This is exactly what it's called, and yes, that works. So we don't need to worry about that. Gonna leave that code open because that's probably gonna break. And then we need to make sure parenting actually works. So the trick with this is going to have to be a recursive function because you don't know how many parent objects deep could be. So we need to go all the way up until we hit the top. And let's hope that interfaces don't have anything on it because I don't think I can do interfaces. So we want a few different things here. So that whole system, it should be down into the lib and the JSON folder. And I think it's part of the processor. Okay, there's the override data. I still have to work on the override data somewhere. JSON processor data injection map, I think is what it's called. It actually grabs all fields. So it may actually grab both fields from its own object and fields from other things. So this will probably work. Yeah, let's just run it, because worst case scenario, it blows up. One last thing we need to do, though, before we do run it, is I have to register the listener we just made. So I need to go find the core. This is a cluster, to be honest. I think Volt Engine is due for another cleanup. I know I want to clean up this entire part registry system. I want to make this entirely JSON driven, where you would have a JSON file that goes, hey, I need all these resources. And you can specify the exact resources, not just like groups, because mostly what works is somebody goes, oh, I want the resources, but then they'll like only use the gears or the rods or the plates, and they'll just ignore everything else. It's like, why are you registering everything? Although I'm more like saying that to myself because I'm the only one that actually works in these mods. I actually got so bad that I'm just starting to request-based modules. Okay, where am I registering the listeners right now? I may actually be using the proper method for it. Yeah, I actually am. That's awesome. Eventually I want to get this all event-driven, which would be really cool. It's something we might work on as well. So we want to do render bounds listener. Technically, by the way, render bounds is a client-side only thing, but because of the way we treat it, it can be loaded on both sides without a problem. So we got that. We should do a collision bound listener here later too. Actually, we don't need a collision bound listener because I can't think of anything I have right now that needs to have customized collision bounds. So this will work. Yeah, it looks good. So let's go ahead and run it, and we'll just see how it behaves here in a second. If it crashes, if it loads, we'll find out. It also means all listeners now have this, which is really cool because now I can be much more specific with my logic. It means I can also be more specific about logic I've been writing for client mods because I've been doing a lot of manual listeners for their mods, and a lot of that code is recyclable, which I do plan to recycle almost every piece of it because after all, I'm not selling the code content or anything to the client. The only thing the client is paying for is my time. So I'm being compensated for hours. Though I'm not contractually working for hours nor making a commission. There's like this big weird like legal statement I have that I actually give to my clients because, well, don't want to get in a situation where things are things. Okay, so failed to inject data. Okay, so we screwed something up. I think I know exactly what we screwed up. We forgot to change this to a cube. This is going to be render bounds. And I'm going to do that exact same thing I said I shouldn't do, and I'm just going to return it because, well, it should not be edited ever. Watch somebody actually do that now. They'd be like, oh, it should be a static object. Because out of all my objects, most of my objects are immutable. The cube is the only one that's not immutable. You can change it. You can't change the min and max are immutable objects, but they can, of course, be re-injected again. I actually might start revisiting the idea of using mutable objects again just to save on RAM. Because there are certain occasions, like I'm doing a ton of calculations, that having a mutable object, so something that can be edited, would save, I don't know, probably almost a kilobyte of calculation. Some of those pathfinders use huge amounts of data. And it'd be nice to shave off as much of that as possible. Because you gotta imagine, like, even if you got a pathfinder that's only doing like 100 blocks, if each block iteration is using like 20 objects, and each of those objects is, let's say, like 32 bytes. So we 32 bytes times 20, and you're pathing like 100. You're using 64 kilobytes, I think. Yes. So that's just for one blast doing 100 blocks. Now we do have blocks or blasts in this that do like 1500 times 4 times 8. So you're seeing like where the data is going really quickly. Really need to work on that, because if I can shave off that data, that means the garbage collector doesn't need to run as often, which means it frees up CPU. CPU freed up makes the program run better. And we borked render bounds completely because you see like nothing rendering. So let's see what we broke. Clearly something's working though. Okay, first things first, I want to see if my isValid checks are working. Let's do this real quick. I think render bounds are cached. I have that impression now. Unless it's crashing. What are you doing? Didn't return a structure map? Didn't return a structure map. Are you not multi-blocking for some reason? No, you have multi-blocks. Why are you not? Why does it say you're not returning a structure? Oh, whatever. That's a bug I'll fix later. Okay, so we want to see if this thing is running. Okay, so what are you? This is multi-block listener, which is not what I want. Okay, so let's not run this here because I'm going to get the multi-blocks and everything else. Instead, we want to come up over here and we want to go right here. Ah, sweet. So, things. List is null. That's cool. Somebody didn't construct correctly. Oh wait, it's working now. Size is 4. Check location is valid for tile. What are we anyways, tile content wise? We're a small launcher. Okay. Oh, this is that would be important. Public, or no, this would be protected method. Protected boolean can how do we want to do this actually? So we have an isServer check. Can handle side or invalid for for side. I don't want to do side. Like, what's a better word for client and server? Side. We'll just do it this way. Kill my phone because it's the telemarketer. Okay, so we do isServer. We'll just return true. I'm going to just do 2 checks for this because of sheer simplicity. No, that doesn't feel right. So it's just without the runtime would work, because then that means it's not just a check for is server or client, it's a check for any kind of runtime condition, and we just want to return true by default. And we want to put a comment here. Checks if the listener should function for the runtime conditions. This includes server, client, checks, configs, except return true if valid. That gives me the opportunity to use this for a lot of other things. And of course, we want to go to our multi-block listener, which actually does depend on this functioning. And then we want to toss it in there. So let's see if I can remember where I threw my multi-block listener. Still getting used to my own code here. It's one of those embarrassing things, like, oh, I read all this code, but then I don't remember where any of it is. Yeah, telling that to somebody is not going to go over well. I'm not ashamed of it, though, because I have wrote a ton of code. There's so many lines of code in here that I pretty much could make a game engine out of what I have in here. So we have this, so that only runs, yeah, it only runs on that side. And we don't have to worry about checking it on our render listener, because it only runs client side anyways, so you can't run it server side. Kind of curious to see what that number was actually. I'm pretty sure it was a telemarketer because it seems to be that same style, but my luck, I just turned down an employment call. If it's important to leave a message, if it's not, then well, it's a telemarketer. Although I had a telemarketer bot that was on the level of harassment, would call me 9 times a day, every other hour pretty much. And it did this for like 4 weeks straight. That was horrible. I blocked the number, but even if you block a number on your phone on the Sprint Samsung stuff, it doesn't get rid of the number. It simply auto-rejects it. Auto-rejecting it still lets it get access to your voicemail. And I kind of wish it would not do the voicemail thing as well, because that means it still shows up on my phone. So I got this list of about like 60 of the same exact message using a really horrible version of a voice synthesizer from Morgan Freeman's voice. So it's got that, like, you would think it would sound nice, but it doesn't. But you can still tell it's his voice because, well, his voice is pretty nice. But because they're running it through like a cheapy synthesizer, it sounds bad. It's like they literally took a voice synthesizer and then they plugged like text-to-speech into it, because it has that rigid chat behavior. I don't even know anymore. Either way, it was the same message over and over and over, trying to offer me healthcare, which I did figure out, by the way. My healthcare expires next year, so that's why I'm getting called. So I have to pay for my own healthcare here this next year, which is going to suck so much. Okay, why do we get a point where sometimes listeners are null? Oh yeah, because you wouldn't have listeners for certain types of things. So we'll do the isValid check. And now we just got to see when the content IDs match. We're just going to put a thing here. So yeah, content ID matches. Oh wait, no, it doesn't match. We're still trying to get the content ID. Oops. Shouldn't that have just matched? No, we're still on micro. Okay, here's the small one. Yay, it works. Okay. At least it matches correctly. And look at that. Look, I can stare straight up and I can still see it. And that should work on all of these too. So yeah. Still see it in the corner. That's so nice. That looks so cool. So yeah, that was not too bad of a fix. So we can knock that off of our list now. So we got a list over here. And which one was that one? Render bounce. I'm actually going to knock things off the list, I'm going to do something like that. That way I still remember how many items we had on the list, but then I go, okay, that's no longer valid. There is a strike-through behavior for this, but I have to set the text file to like a ME format or something, and then it'll start to render that way. But yeah, so we're done here. So I'll see you guys in the next video.